All right, so tonight I'm going to be flying Cirrus Jets. I'm going to be flying offline, so I won't be using the IVO network like I have been using. And the main thing that I want to focus on this evening was get used to basically flying in Canada, which I'm familiar with, and just get used to kind of looking at weather, the weather again. So basically, what I'm doing, sometimes I don't have all the time to do everything correctly, like get the correct checklist, do all the taxiing, log onto the network, check the winds, check the weather, follow a proper flight plan, and then do a full flight. I just don't have the time, right? All the time to do that, unless I was like pausing it like each time, which I could do. But basically, this evening I only have. It's like I'm limited with time because I got a busy week ahead. So what I'm doing is I'm basically gonna focus on weather as something I wanna just get used to looking at. So basically what I did tonight, I got flightplanning.navcanada.ca. I saved that link and I have a notepad with all the links I'm using for flight simulating. So that's probably a good idea if you are getting into this. So what I'm doing, so I clicked here and I'm basically just getting used to checking the weather again, like you used to do when I flew like 3 years ago. So if you are flying a flight simulator, if you want to kind of, especially in Canada, you can use this website, flightplanning.navcanada.ca. You click Mentor tab. Let me get the little pointer out just one sec. We'll use that so you can see what I'm. And I will also make the screen a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so let's say you want to check the weather. So I'm flying out of CYQM and I'm doing a cross-country flight from Moncton to Fredericton. And the plane's already on the runway. I'm not going to taxi. I don't have time for it. I don't have time for run-up or all that stuff. So departure point, CYQM. Arrival, CYFC. So that's Fredericton, New Brunswick. Moncton, New Brunswick, Fredericton, New Brunswick. So these are the abbreviations for the airports. I'll get weather with NOTAMs. And I'll just click all the stuff to give me waypoint, weather, NOTAMs, SIGMETs, AirMets. So this kind of makes it. My goal is to use the flight simulator to get back into flying, basically. So I'm just doing this to kind of get familiar with everything. If you've been away from flying for a while, there's a lot you have to kind of like get back into. There's a lot you have to review, right? So this is kind of a fun way for me to review everything. So CYQM, so that's Moncton to Fredericton. So it looks like they're marginal VFR. So I'm using the radio calls on the XPlane 10, and I'm going to be using that. So right now the winds are pretty crappy. I'm still going to take off, but it's half statute miles. Winds are 230 at 6 knots. Like I'm just kind of getting used to looking at weather again. So this is a speci, so it's special reports. Vertical visibility is 200 feet. Temperature 5, dew point 5. Altimeter 2982. All right. So just kind of getting familiar with it. That's what I'm looking to do. And then I'll be flying to Fredericton. So the winds are 9 statute miles. The winds are 300 at 3 knots. It's overcast at 3,100. Temperature 6, dew point 4. Altimeter settings 2984. So look at that. I'll be arriving there in an hour. So at 5 Zulu. So yeah, it looks pretty good. And then you can check the GFA, which is called the graphical forecast. Click on that. Click on the area you're flying, and you can check icing, turbulence, and freezing, and clouds and weather. So let's check that out. So you can kind of see there's Fredericton, broken at 3,000 to 5,000, 6 statute miles, patchy ceilings. Okay. So just getting kind of back into the terminology of flying. That's my goal. That's what I'm focusing on right now. And I can check icing and turbulence. So it looks like there'll be some freezing. From freezing level, so there's mixed icing, I believe. Moderate icing. Okay, no turbulence. All right, so let's. So again, just checking the weather, getting used to adding. Like my last flight with the Cessna, I added. First, I did the radio calls and IVO, and then I did circuits using a Cessna. Then I got the checklist on Google, and I'm just getting used to using a checklist. So just adding a few things here and there, and that's it. All right, so just getting used to checking the weather. And so again, if you're using the flight summary, you want to check the weather, it's flightplanning.navcanada.ca for flying in Canada. And if you want to check the weather just in your area, you just click Mentor and TAF. And then if you're just flying like a local flight, you just put the abbreviation. So CYQM is Moncton. And then you get the information there. All right, because the cool thing about XPlane 10 is it actually shows you the real-time weather, which is cool. Get rid of this. Display capture. Or wait, let's do this. There we go. Okay, so that is done. So let's go back into the flight simulator. And I should also have. I'm also gonna have to get a CFS and get. I should have like IFR charts and stuff as well. I don't have any at home yet, but that's something on like a to-do list. And I have to get rudder pedals. So there's all these little investments I have to get. But I'm just doing one thing at a time. So. Okay. So I don't really have time to do a real official like flight planning setup, but I do. So basically, with the simulator, when you follow a flight plan, they're going to give you headings and altitude. And Fredericton is eastbound. And there'll be, yeah, so basically when you're filing a flight plan on the simulator, it will give you vectors. So we'll go. Toggle nearby air traffic control. So you're going to want this frequency as a cheat sheet to help get to all the frequencies that you want. And then you're going to want to do file a flight plan. I always use 3D cockpit command look just because when you right click on the mouse, you have the ability to look around, which is something that is, I think, pretty cool. So that's my favorite look for when I'm setting up the fly. And then what we're going to do is file a flight plan. File a flight plan. Where the heck? Oh yeah, you gotta press enter. That's what it is. So you press enter, file flight plan. Okay, so we're taking CYQM. So we'll do maybe 6,000 feet, or let's do. through 9000 to CYFC. And one thing that I think is really, really cool is on the flight simulator, you can, for the route, you may enter realistic routes with NDB, VOR, and fixes. And I believe, into the flight plan, leave departure code blank. So I think if you have, for the route, you may enter realistic routes. So if you enter like a specific NDB approach or a VOR or fix, you can actually, I think the simulator actually makes you go through that when you're talking to the simulator on the system, so, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, filed the flight plan, and then we're gonna contact ground and
error.
Request clearance.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Cleared IFR to Charlie, Yankee, Foxtrot, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 9000, squawk 4700.
So I'll read back that.
Cleared IFR to Charlie, Yankee, Foxtrot, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 9000, squawk 4700, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
So squawk 4700.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, Mike, altimeter 2980.
Adjust the altimeter setting 2980. As far as the autopilot tonight, I played around with a little bit past couple flights, and I don't want to use it too much because it can really screw you up if you're not familiar with the autopilot. So I'm probably going to fly most of it by just using a mouse. One thing I do want to maybe potentially use is the heading. If so, I might use autopilot for the heading, and other than that, yeah, I'll be doing everything else.
Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, Mike, altimeter 2980, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Okay, so with the asterisks, they basically went from Moncton ground to Moncton tower. So we're gonna press
Charlie,
taxi.
India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, runway 29er, taxi via 116, hold short of runway 29er.
Runway 29er, taxi via 116, hold short of 29er, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Okay, parking brake is off, so B for parking brake, and we will go taxi. So this aircraft, I think they just got it manufactured or something. I saw something on Facebook tonight. So that's awesome, because then maybe I can get a checklist for the simulator, because once an airplane is officially like manufactured, you can actually get a checklist for the plane. So I'll be looking to do that. I might email them and just see if they have anything like, they have to have a published checklist, right? For you to find something online. So I'll see if there is something available. Because right now I don't have a checklist for the plane, and there's nothing on the internet that I found as of yet. So it would be really awesome to have, because this plane is pretty fun to fly in the simulator. And then when it comes to rudder pedals, so basically the keyboard has a rudder trim input, but if you want to actually have rudder pedals, it's probably good to buy pedals or use a joystick. You can have some joysticks where you can actually twist the joystick, and that controls the rudder. But I don't think I'm gonna use that, because I don't want to develop any habits on this flight simulator that would transfer over to real life flying. Like, I want to make it as realistic as I can. So what I'm probably going to do is get the actual rudder pedals. So I've been looking around, seeing if I can get something for that. So seeing if the virtual compass is working, it's swinging, it's good. Okay, this is the end of the arrow. It's nice having the arrows, it's easier to taxi.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, cross runway 29er, hold short of runway 29er.
Okay, so I'll read back that.
Cross 29er. Hold short of 29er. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Cross runway 29 and then hold short of runway 29. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so I know they're bringing me. All the way around here. Yeah, so right now I'm taxiing just with aileron inputs, right? Just clicking on the mouse. That's just the ailerons. The rudders, like if you taxi with rudders, I can't, which I really want to get. So I like the arrows that it gives you, because it kind of gives you an opportunity to practice taxiing without getting too lost, right? Because taxiing can be, especially at night, it can be a little bit challenging. So this kind of helps get familiar with taxiing. So we're gonna go all the way to the end of the runway here, and then we'll probably be cleared to take off. And then I gotta start thinking, okay, this is where I would do takeoff check. Wait, where is it sending to? So if I was to have any pre-takeoff checks, I'd be getting pretty close to doing it. If we're kind of number one, the runway's kind of quiet. So departure time will be 9:35. Altimeter is good. Squawk code is set. I believe with this plane, as soon as you take off, it will automatically go to alt for the squawk code. Like some planes, you have to actually switch it over to, it's off standby, oops. On. Oh, okay. So standby, and you have to actually click That's new to me. I'm gonna actually pause the simulator and see what. Okay, so what are the options here? On, standby, off. So it's off. Air traffic control doesn't get your squawk code. Standby is standby, and then on. You probably want it on ETC1, ETC2. Squawk ident, test it. So if you get the squawk identify in the plane, you click on that. Okay, good enough.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 280, runway 29er. Clear for takeoff.
So fly heading 280 for runway 29, and we're cleared to take off. So read back that.
Heading 280, runway 29er, cleared for takeoff. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Turning around. I think the plane is stuck at the end of the runway. It's good. I'm just gonna turn it around. I think you can do that if you click on Google Map. So that's right, taxied. I was on the so the flight simulator put me on the opposite of the active runway. We taxied there, boom, 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 and I think why is it stuck like that? I don't know. So I think you can just move the plane like that. I don't know if you can move the nose wheel in the simulator. Let's just put it right here. The brakes are off. Oh, I just needed to add more throttle, that's all it was. I was pressing F1 instead of F2. Okay. There we go. Okay, got it figured out. So now we're straight down the runway. All I was doing, I was pressing F1 instead of F2. F2 increases the throttle, so it looked like I was stuck, but all it was, I was just pressing the wrong button. Okay, so we're clear to take off. We're flight heading 280. And let's go ahead and at full power. So airspeed is alive. We're looking inside. Full power. Power is achieved. The indicators look like they're increasing. Temperatures and pressures. Indicator looks good. If I can look inside. Looking straight down the runway and rotating. Here we go. Boom. So we're cleared to 280. Flaps are up. Gears are up. G for gears.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Contact center on 132.2.
Contact center on 132.2. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Error.
Center, Charlie, India,
Error.
Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, Mike, altimeter 2980. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, fly heading 280.
Heading 280. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, resume on navigation.
On navigation. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
So I'm going to put 280 here. I'm going to try to get the heading on autopilot. And then the rest I just want to just fly with the mouse. So 280. And then we're climbing to 9,000 feet. I think the simulator is working because or the autopilot, sorry, the autopilot, because I have flight director on and 280. I click green for the heading, and it looks like it's working 280. I'll see if it straightens the plane. If it does, I know the simulator is working. So we're climbing to 9,000 feet. Oh no, it blew past it unless it's adjusting. I don't think it is. So maybe click on auto. I don't want anything to do with altitude, so we need to turn that off. I think the yellow means off, so we'll go auto and see what happens. Nope. Okay. Disconnect the autopilot. So that didn't work at all. So 280. Heading. Maybe you gotta put the heading with to encompass it. I'm not sure. Put 8,000. And we'll change the angle bank so it's only 10 degrees, not as aggressive. Let's see what happens. I go auto. See, it's climbing me. No, we'll turn it off. Alright. I think I should just leave the autopilot off because I don't know how. Very nice. So cruise checks. Whoop. Stay.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, climb and maintain 9,000.
I really want to figure out this autopilot thing. So I'll read back that. instruction.
Up to 9,000 Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
I wonder if I turn it off, if that...
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform,
Indicator.
Sierra. Climb and maintain 9,000.
If you don't, if you have the flight director off, you can still use the bars to help. Like you can see, here's the altitude we need to keep, here's the heading, and we can kind of just use that as an aid to help. See how I can change that there? So I can just kind of help for setting up. Maintain the heading and altitude. So, okay, no more flight sim, or no more autopilot stuff for tonight. It's gonna take a little while to figure out. So I'll just trim it as best I can. If anyone knows how to use the autopilot or on this plane for XPlane, feel free to message me, and I'll be glad to hear from you. Slow the plane a bit. So I changed the power. I have to change my pitch to maintain altitude. Bring the power back a bit, and then basically pitching up to maintain the same altitude.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 9,000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 7,000.
Down to 7,000 Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Alright, going to 7,000. I'll just get used to the autopilot by putting it in. Just getting used to the dials. And that way I can at least see the bar on the screen. Power as we trim. Because I'm flying IFR as well, I'm looking just inside the plane, I'm not looking outside for any references. And basically just looking at...
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo,
There we go.
Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 290. Vectors for the visual, runway 27. Descend and maintain 5,000.
So we got that.
Heading 290. Vectors for the visual, runway 27, down to 5,000 Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 5,000. India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, Mike, altimeter 2980.
Charlie, Yankee, Quebec, Mike, altimeter 2980. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Alright, this is pretty cool. 290, and then making small adjustments and looking for I have 5,000 feet here for the altitude, so I should see the purple bar come up, and then just basically use that as a way of, as a reference. Here it is, coming up. Boom. Some power. Get cruise attitude and trim.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, fly heading 180, descend and maintain 2000.
Heading 180, down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Whoop. We're at 2,080. So what I'm doing, if I'm looking at the plane, I'm always going back to these indicators to help fly, right? Because right now I'm like using the autopilot stuff. It's nice, but you should always be referring back because we're getting close to the altitude. So power as we trim.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, fly heading 360. Vectors for the visual, runway 27, descend and maintain 2000.
Heading 360. Vectors for the visual, runway 27, down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, descend and maintain 2000.
Down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, fly heading 090.
Heading 090. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, descend and maintain 2000.
Down to 2000, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
My altitude's a little all over the place, which is not good. I'm just gonna make smaller adjustments with the mouse, and yeah. Level off, we're heading east. 2,000 feet. Doing the autopilot thing just as a reference, but not always looking back to my my screen. So now
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 180.
Heading 180, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 2,000.
Down to 2000, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
there's the needle or the bar that's coming up. Boom. Just makes it a little bit easier to fly. Just remember your headings and altitude.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 240.
Okay.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 270. Report the field in sight.
Heading 270. We'll call the field. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
So we're looking for the runway in sight. 270. I think next time I might have to fly a slower airplane. This is fun to fly, but to maintain your altitude and heading without the autopilot is, unless I'm doing really tiny adjustments, but I gotta
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 2,000.
I gotta figure out the autopilot stuff to really fly this pretty good.
Down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Got the heading altitude. field is in sight. Here we go. I'll read back that.
Center, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. You're leaving my airspace. You're leaving my airspace.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
So hopefully we'll get the frequency of Fredericton Tower show up on the nearby air traffic control frequencies. So we'll start setting it for approach. Gears down, flaps down. Come on, come on. Auto tune recommended frequencies. It should ask, or it should give you the frequency sooner, so I probably will have to. Why doesn't it do that? Moncton Air Control Center. I wonder if
500.
I should probably overshoot because I'm not gonna make this. Power flaps up. Gears up. Climb attitude. So I'm gonna pause the simulator and find out the Fredericton frequency. 136.3. No, 236. Wait. Two 236.6.
Error.
And it says file.
Error.
So last time I was using the simulator, it switched this basically switched the frequency over, and then you make your radio calls from there. But okay. So that approach didn't work. Overshoot, and then I'll probably contact the control center.
Error.
They'll probably ask you to go there, and then I'll do it again.
Error.
Try that.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra, Kilo, Hotel, Uniform, Lima, altimeter 2985.
That wasn't the right frequency.
Kilo, Hotel, Uniform, Lima, altimeter 2985, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Do I have to refile a flight plan or something? Let's try that. CYFC. And then.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Cleared IFR to Charlie, Yankee, Foxtrot, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 3000, squawk 4700.
Cleared IFR to Charlie, Yankee, Foxtrot, Charlie, as filed. Maintain 3000, squawk 4700, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Alright, let's try that again.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 3000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 040. Vectors for the visual, runway 27. Descend and maintain 3000.
Heading 040. Vectors for the visual, runway 27, down to 3000, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 040. Vectors for the visual, runway 27. Descend and maintain 3000.
Heading 040. Vectors for the visual, runway 27, down to 3000, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 090. Descend and maintain 2000.
Heading 090, down to 2000, Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
So now I got these two indicators here and here to use as a reference. So that makes it a little bit easier. And just making small adjustments. To my heading. So on my first approach I was in really high, and also the simulator doesn't switch over to the Fredericton frequencies to clear to land for some reason. So I don't know why that was so, but I'll just come in and land again. If it doesn't switch over, then that's okay. I'll just land. And yeah. I'm just gonna pause the simulator and see where these guys are sending me here. Let's have a look at that. Nope. So it looks like they're sending me around this way, so I'll probably get a right hand turn, and then I would think they're just gonna vector me back on the same approach. Into Fredericton. Mandatory frequency 1190. That's what I'm looking for. That's better. I don't know what I put in before, but that was elevation 68. Oh, and cool, it gives you the weather too, so Okay, 1990. So I'll have that on 1190. I'll have that as the standby frequency. 132.2 is not the right one, so 10. Okay. On pause. Zoom in.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 180. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 2000.
Down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Guessing it's gonna send me to 27. It's probably gonna make me do a right hand turn. I think the next flight I'm gonna fly they have a single engine Cirrus plane.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 240.
Heading 240. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
They have a single engine high performance plane, I think, in the simulator, so I'll probably use that next time for my flight. Because it's just. And then I gotta figure out the autopilot on this. And then that might make this a lot more enjoyable.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Fly heading 270. Report the field in sight.
Okay, here we go. Tip number 2.
Heading 270. We'll call the field. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. Descend and maintain 2000.
Down to 2000. Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
My flaps down and gears down earlier. And port field
Center,
sight.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra.
Charlie, India, Romeo, Romeo, Uniform, Sierra. You're leaving my airspace.
it because I'm coming too high and it's on? Because I know out here. I think what it is, it's picking up the military airspace. So that's why it does that. Because I went pretty high just a second ago. Like I was supposed to maintain 2,000 feet and I didn't. So I think that's what it's doing. Alright, I'm gonna land this. So I'll try switching over to yeah, there we go. 1190. No, and then it gives you
Error.
okay, it deletes the flight plan. Alright, whatever. We'll land it. Get rid of this. So gears are down. We got 3 in the green. Flaps are down. Probably put a little bit more speed on this for the approach. Maybe 110 or something like that. We're still pretty high. So. That looks a bit better. So the Fredericton. Oh, I think it's not a controlled. So Fredericton Tower on final for runway 27. Yeah, it's not a mandatory frequency here. Okay, here we go. Let's land this. Dun, 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 dun. Cruise attitude. Pitch up a little bit. And there we go. And then we would taxi off. I'm gonna skip that for tonight. If it was a taxi, we can look at the map. Look at the map here. So if we were to taxi here, actually, you know what? Maybe I should taxi. So I can practice. I would be doing a 180-degree turn, and then taxiing where the runways meet, and then probably here. I wish these friggin' had the taxi. They don't have the actual taxi. Let's see if I zoom in if it does. What does it show you? No, it doesn't show you. probably have to look up and have that information. I'll show you here. So turn the plane around. So I'll be making my radio calls, I would say Fredericton. Is backtracking runway 27 and doing the proper radio calls. We'll implement that for another flight. And here we go. We're getting off the runway. Always important to get off the runway. And then it's on. There we go. And I'll shut down do the engine shutdown checks. And we're done. Boom. I'm out of here. How do you open this? Come on. Open the door. Oh well. Through the window I go. So there you go. That was a fun flight. I had to overshoot because I went too high on the approach. And yeah, so Fredericton is not a controlled airport, so I would have to make a reporting calls. And that's it. All right, cool. Thanks for watching this video. If you watch through the whole thing, or if you watch little parts of it, hope it helps you with wherever you are with your XPlane 10 or real life flying, whatever. And oh, there we go. And I'm out that way. Let's get out of here. I'm out. There we go. And I'll see you in the next video.